Hello everyone, welcome to another Joseki lesson. So in this lesson, let's keep talking about this PEEP Joseki, stemming from Black's number 7. So in the previous video, I introduced the basic version, or the simple version of this Joseki. So White responds by connecting here, Black comes into the corner, and White can either take Sente or play something here on the left side. All these points should be okay. So that's the simple version. And it's very beginner friendly, and this lesson will not be super beginner friendly, but I will have some so-called bottom lines that you can fall back on if you're nervous about playing some of the more complicated variations. So once again, Josekis are sequences that are acceptable to both sides. But what is acceptable to professional players may be a little different to what's acceptable to beginners and amateurs. So some of these variations I'm showing you are going to be super complicated and they're not that easy to understand, but it's important to know that they're out there. Whereas some of the other simple variations are not playable for professional players because they would say it either favors one side or the other. But if you're an amateur or beginner, it's actually playable because it doesn't make a huge difference. So that is why it's difficult to teach Josekis at the beginner and amateur level. Even as I was doing my research for this video, I looked at quite a few resources in Chinese from professional players, but they don't really comment on those simple variations. Instead, they're more focused on the complicated ones. So those are definitely not super beginner friendly, and I'll make this as beginner friendly as possible, but there's no guarantee. Because once again, as I mentioned before, these Josekis can get really complicated really fast. And that's why a lot of Josekis are really about fighting. As we'll see, in this very first variation I'm showing you, White can play this move. So this is a fighting move, right? So of course the simple version, right, the bottom line you can fall back on is for Black to simply fall back. Now White connects, Black tries to come in once again, and White takes Sente. So there's basically one more exchange, right, between this white stone and this black stone compared to the simpler Joseki that we learned in the previous video. And this is hard to say who's better. This is probably still even, although I would say I would prefer White for a little bit because White really is not afraid of being attacked. And Black's shape here is a little awkward. Right? So if you're White in this situation, you can just move toward the center like this. Or of course just take Sente and play elsewhere. So this is perfectly fine. What's more complicated is for Black to jump into the 3-3 point. White must block from this side, right? White cannot just allow Black to take the corner like this. This is too big. So White must block from this side, and now Black will push and cut with 11 and 13. Now this is really just a capture race problem here on the corner. So White is super short on liberties. Number 12 is in danger of being cut off. So White must play this move, right? Otherwise, number 12 will be cut off this way, or if you try to save number 12, these stones will be dead. So number 14 right here is the only move that White can play to save both number 12 and 4 and 10. So Black will bend here, right? 14, 16, this bend and connect. You're going to see this in many Josekis, not because they're like a fixed sequence of some sort. It's mostly because they're very important for capture races, right? You need to get to these 2 points to increase your own liberties and to kind of put your opponents, right, 9 and 13, into a shortage of liberties situation. So now Black cannot cut here, right? Otherwise, I think Black would die this way very easily. So Black must Atari from this side to kind of extend its liberties. White connects. And now what happens is that Black can simply extend here. And if White plays something like this, Black can simply crawl here, White bends, and Black can simply play here. This is the Joseki, not going to comment on it. And this is considered good for Black, right? You might be thinking Black is all dead here on the corner, right? White has almost 20 points of territory. So how is this good for Black? Black is nothing here, right? Of course, Black should probably extend here on the upper side. So why is it good for Black? The answer is that White is not gaining much more than it had it just surrounded the corner by itself. And the fact that these two Black groups both have 2 liberties left means Black has a lot of potential moves on the outside, like this, to make White more miserable, right? Things like this. So this is why it's actually considered good for black. May not be very convincing for amateurs and beginners because black is all dead here on the corner, but professional players would believe that this is actually good for black. So that's why white might also want to consider this move, right? So this shape, compare this shape to the previous one, this is very solid on the outside. But the problem with number 20 is that there's gonna be some kind of problem here in the corner. So if black stands down here, not the best move. Of course, black can eventually build a living shape if white ignores it, but white can play right here. This is kind of destroying black's eye space in sente. Black must connect here. And now white can play something like this, and black needs to take care of this cutting point. Otherwise, this cut is really harsh, and I believe there's no way, right? This way, black will be captured. Similarly, so this cut at 28 is a potential problem for black. So black will need to play here. This is also playable for black. So white will just capture and kill these 5 stones, and black has sente. So once again, the corner is sizable. It's about 20 points. But black is very solid here. And the upper side is basically under black's control now, right? And black can move toward the left side, probably, at this point. So this is also playable for both sides, and even slightly better for black. Even though, once again, black's corner is all being killed. A better move for black to play is actually this. It's really annoying, right? Because if white plays something like this, then black can try to live like this, and white already loses this race to capture. Right? White cannot come in eventually, no more liberties on the outside. So this is really a race to capture problem. If white plays here, then what happens is that black can simply play here on the outside. Once again, black very solid on the outside. White cannot just capture because black can kill white this way. Right? White can no longer come in from either side. So white is dead. So this is unacceptable for white. What white can do in this situation is to play here. And once again, black has sente. Black can play elsewhere now. And if black wants, sometime down the line, black can start this ko. Right? This ko is really, really annoying for white because black has 0 pressure. Right? Because black is presumed dead already, and it has this ko to play. And white is under a lot of pressure. Right? Because if black wins somehow, this whole corner is going to be black's, right? So this is going to be a huge loss for white, potentially. So black can already take sente, especially at the beginning of a game. Probably not worth it to start this ko. There are no ko threats on the board. But sometime down the line, right, this is like a ticking time bomb that black can trigger at any time. So this is not really okay for white. So white should probably play here instead. Right? Once again, this is really a race to capture problem. And this is how Josekis can get really complicated because the two sides, if they decide to engage in a battle, then it's really all about the race to capture. So black can play here. Once again, very good move. Because now black can live this way by swallowing 22. This is a straight 4 shape, right? This is going to be a living shape. So number 23 is threatening to make a living shape. And once again, white will need to extend liberties here, and it can capture black this way. This way, white will be able to capture black. But once again, the corner right after white fills in all these liberties, it's only about 15 points, right? 10 points, 12, 14, and black is super solid on the outside, and black has sente, right? But of course, in a real game, black will not fill in all these liberties, right? It will end with number 28, and black will play elsewhere. So once again, slightly good for black. Although if you're white in this situation, you might say, I can capture my opponent's corner, and I have like 15 points of territory here, very solid. And if you prefer that as a beginner or amateur player, definitely go for it, right? It doesn't really matter what professionals think about who benefits in this corner, if it works for you. So all those very complicated variations stem from this move, right? Number 8, 9, 11, and 13. So you can decide on your own whether you want to try out that variation or to simply play here at number 9 and end this Joseki in a peaceful manner like this. Where else can number 8 be? Number 8 can also be here, but it has to depend on this ladder right here. This ladder against number 6. So now number 6 will be captured in a ladder because we have a black stone here on the lower right. So this is better for black. This is better for black if white plays at number 8. So you might think that white can come out this way, but black can just take Sente now. And capturing this one stone is still very, very big. It's even bigger, probably more valuable than taking the corner by 20 points. So do not underestimate the value of capturing one stone like this. I believe it's called Ponuki, right? People talk about this all the time. If you have a Ponuki, it's worth, I don't know, 30 points. Of course, it's not exact, but that's what people say. Super valuable. And of course, black should not try to save this stone with number 15, right? This way, 5 and 15 are heavier, and this is a pretty bad shape for black. So I wouldn't want to play this as black, right? So just give up number 5. You have number 6. This is already pretty good for black. Again, a bit counterintuitive because you think the white's corner here is pretty big. So once again, if you're white and you like taking the corner as a beginner or an amateur, go for it. Although professional players will say this is good for black, but if you prefer white this way, go for it. Nothing wrong with it. But technically speaking, right, white only plays this when number 6 is safe from a ladder. So let's pretend that white is safe from a ladder and white connects, and now this is very good for white, right? Because black cannot play this ladder. Otherwise, black will be killed this way or this way. So this is not okay for black. So black can only play this, and this will just be a fight, right? This will just be a fight, or white can come out this way. And black's capturing this way is very different from just removing number 6 from the board, right? Because white has all kinds of moves on the outside. Now, if number 6 is in danger of being captured in a ladder, white can try this move. So what happens now is that black actually cannot play this. Might seem a little counterintuitive. Once again, if it works for you, go for it. But professional players, some of the resources I looked at do not even explain why, right? Black cannot play here. It just presumes that number 13 is a very bad move. And I think it is, right? Because black can try to capture white this way, but this has bad aji, right? Bad taste. I think white can play, there's so many things for white to play on the outside. Something as simple as this might work, right? Black is enclosed very easily. White can try something like this and start a fight here, right? This will be a race to capture, potentially. So this is not okay for black. That's the conclusion, but of course, you can try it out, your own game, number 13. So number 13 has to be here, has to stand down here. And white must connect because of the weaknesses here in the corner. And it seems like black is pretty broken, but it's actually playable for black. But again, black cannot play this, right? If you play this, number 16 is threatening to kill 7 and 9, and 11 and 13 are also in danger, being captured by number 18 here. So black should simply play this. What happens now is that if white plays something like this, then black can play this move. Once again, black is not afraid of sacrificing its stones, right? So white cannot stand down, otherwise these 3 white stones will all be dead. So white will probably play something like this, and this is still very good for black, I think, because white doesn't need to play an extra move on the corner, but black can take the corner eventually if it wants to, like this. It can come into the corner like this. So this is not okay for white. And black is, once again, very solid. So number 17 is really in Sente. So white must play a move to save number 8. And now this is going to be a fight. And it's perfectly playable for black. Probably good for black at this point. Because these 4 white stones are short on liberties, and black can extend to the left side or the upper side. Or if white cuts here, black just gives up number 5. By pushing here, white still needs to extend, right? Otherwise, black has this double hane here that's threatening these 4 white stones, right? So white must extend again, and now these 4 stones are kind of in danger. Or black doesn't even need to play here. Black can play somewhere else. So this could be a variation. It's actually good for black. Or white might want to play this, but it's the same result. Like, once again, black can just play something like this. And the conclusion is that this is playable. This is playable for black. Because even capturing these 3 stones is not really important. You might think capturing these 3 stones is key for white, but let's just see. When it captures, number 20 is a completely wasted move. And as black, you really like to see that, right? So it's really just 6 points. And white potential on the upper side is still limited by moves like 21. And even this is okay for black, I think. You might disagree, right? So a lot of these variations are a little counterintuitive for beginners and amateurs. I get it, because none of us likes losing stones. But in this particular situation, really, like, black is not afraid of losing some stones. And if white plays here, right, it's pretty harsh. What black can do is, once again, play at 17 and kind of just do this exchange. Even this is good for black, according to professional players, right? Black taking these 2 white stones, and white takes these 3 stones. Again, the corner territory is sizable, but black has sente, and this is a good shape for black, right? If black plays at 25, the left side is basically black's. So black can build on this very easily, and black can kind of, if you really want to play on the side, right, kind of reduce white's potential on the upper side very easily as well. So this is definitely playable for both sides, but again, if you're white, you might prefer it as a beginner or an amateur, and that's totally fair. Alternatively, black can play this move. This is a good move to learn. Kind of bumping here. If white plays anywhere else, you can kind of connect and try to save these stones. And white is really short on liberties. And if white plays here, now you're kind of forcing white to give up an extra stone. And that's even better for black. So this is similar to the previous variation, but black has forced white to sacrifice 1 more stone here. So this is better for black, according to professional players, but I think for amateurs, beginners, this is perfectly playable for both sides. So once again, super complicated, more complicated than I initially thought. So if you're already overwhelmed, you can ignore some of these more complicated variations. Just know they're out there, and when you need these Josekis, come back to this video and look for similar resources that explain this Joseki, right? So if you're black and if you regret it, coming here if the ladder doesn't work for you, most importantly, you can play this move. You can just pull back, and white's move right here is important. You have to play this tiger's mouth. It makes this shape on the outside very solid, and black can play something on the side here, or can play here. Number 13 is big for both sides. So this is also playable for both sides. And eventually black can come in like this. But black doesn't want to come in now, because this way, I think this is actually good for white, right? White is very solid, and black still has these weaknesses potentially. But of course now white should take sente, and that means black should take sente. Number 13 shouldn't play right away. Black should play on the upper side or keep expanding here, number 13. So this is also a viable Joseki for beginners and amateurs. And that's number 8, right? Again, super complicated. 2 more possibilities for number 8. But I'll keep it simple, right? Simpler. Number 8 might want to play here, but once again, there's a potential weakness, right, in this cut. It gets really complicated. I'm not going to get into it. But the bottom line here is that black can take sente, or black can just play something on the upper side here to finish the shape, and just leave this push and cut for later. So this is problematic for white, according to professional players, because they do not like such moves. But for beginners and amateurs, black may not execute this move so well. So white may not have that much to worry about. Similarly, this move kind of protects this cut. But again, there's still bad aji, right? Bad taste for white with 10 and 6 here. So number 8 is even slower. And again, black can just play something on the outside to finish the shape, or take sente in this situation, right? So white is already, number 8 is probably a slow move. So I think that's it. We did get to some really complicated variations in this lesson. As I mentioned before, these are not beginner friendly. You just have to know that they're out there, right? Josekis can get really complicated. And if you're nervous as white, you can just connect here. It's perfectly fine. It's a very good Joseki to play at this point. If you're white in this situation, and if you're black in this situation, as I mentioned in the previous video, you can just fall back to this attachment underneath and number 7 and play this double hane and number 9. And this is perfectly playable for both sides. So that's it for an introduction to this PEEP Joseki. It gets really complicated, and some of the patterns might be a little counterintuitive because it involves a lot of sacrifice. But once again, the game is yours, and it's always your decision on which Joseki to pick. And if a Joseki works for you, keep playing it. When it doesn't help you, you need to pivot and choose another Joseki that you think can help you win. And that's all that matters. Thank you for watching.